Hello, everyone. I'm Hillary Atkin from the Atkin Report, and I am delighted to welcome Crystal Brock, Director of Brewmance, to this edition of Hillary's Happy Hour. Crystal, how are you doing?
I'm great, Hillary. How are you?
Really good, thank you. Your film, which is out on Amazon Prime, traces the careers of various home brewers as they try to open craft breweries in Long Beach, California. But tell us more about it, how you developed the concept and about the production itself.
Well, when I finished my last film called Touch the Wall, I was casting about for a subject, and this friend of mine was a home brewer, and he told me about the homebrew club meetings, and he took me to a craft brewery down in Torrance, and I kind of tasted all those beers, and I was thinking, wow, these are fabulous, interesting, diverse beers. Must be a story here somewhere. So I did a little more research, and then I found these homebrewers at a homebrew club meeting who were going to open up their own breweries. And I thought, oh, well, there's a film. That's how it started.
What was it like getting to know some of these artisans as you shot their stories?
Well, it's I have to say I like making films with people that I like and who are wonderful, soulful people. And I kind of got lucky with these guys because the world of craft beer is just full of like nice, interesting people for the most part. Like there are people who understand there's a connection to the world outside of them. Otherwise, they wouldn't be a craft brewer. And there's something about sharing beer. So like making a beer, it's like being, making dinner, having a dinner party. So you make your dinner, you make this dinner for your 8 friends, and then you share it, and then everybody sort of, you grow closer. It's the same kind of process. Um,
The father-son story of 10
yeah.
Mile Brewery was quite interesting. So tell us more about that.
So Dan and Jesse are this very tight father son tandem that they they had a rough time when Jesse was a teenager, I suppose, as most teenagers are difficult, and things got a little testy. They kind of got into fights, and it wasn't until Dan came home with some homebrew ideas from a trip he'd taken and started homebrewing in the kitchen that Jesse came up and said, what you doing? And Dan said, I'm homebrewing. Jesse kind of went like, oh, can I help? And so basically their homebrewing, they came together over homebrewing, and they had sort of common interest, and it was like this father-son thing they can do. And it brought them back together. You know?
Yeah, I love seeing their story in the film. And also, another person that I thought was fascinating was Charles Papasian, the so
Yeah.
called godfather of craft beer. What can you tell us about him and his story?
Charlie's a rascal. He's like, this is like one of the real early like insurgents of like, homebrewing and craft beer, but also just of flavors, because those early homebrewers were just, they were fed up with the commercially available beer because it was boring, in the
Let's
70s.
say it, Coors Light. Let's just say it.
I'm not gonna say. I actually have to say I drink Coors Light. It's
Okay.
a well-made light beer, but I don't think there was Coors Light back then. There was just Coors, there was Michelob, there was Budweiser, there was Schlitz, there was Pabst. It was just one kind of beer. And these homebrewers were like fed up. They were like, I don't why I want to taste something different. So they started like making these beers that used to exist, like a stout or a brown ale or a milk stout or whatever it is, and a saison, and so they started to recreate these lost styles. And Charlie Papasian was at the center of this. He's the one who started the Great American Beer Festival, which is like kind of the mecca, the big celebration of craft beer. And he started this whole organization that supports craft beer and homebrewing now. And so He was like the impish rascal. He was like this nuclear engineer who sort of gave everything up and went to Colorado and like taught college and brewed beer, taught how to brew beer.
Well, you trace the history of beer brewing in the U.S. and obviously he was a key figure. But what were some of the other fascinating things that you learned in the course of making this film?
Ugh, where do I stop? It was like, I mean, it was so interesting talking to these people because a lot of these people are, you know, they've established themselves. There's Ken Grossman who established Sierra Nevada, and Jim Cook who made Sam Adams, and Fritz Maytag who, like, you know, had Anchor Steam, and these people who struggled and persevered. They had an idea and they thought like, I can make this happen. And then their stories are all very similar. You know, they go through all these struggles and things, failure, but they persist. And then gradually they get traction. And then all of a sudden, but it's like these people all have kind of a common story that I think is very American. This story of, you know, struggle and persistence and defiance and creative disruption, whatever you want to call it. But it's like, it's kind of invigorating to talk to these people.
What would you say the state of the industry is now? I mean, I go into local grocery stores and there's just a massive selection of craft beers, which is just even beautiful to look at, right?
It is, right? It is. I mean, you know, I think craft beer is sort of followed along with our evolution of taste in America. Because for a long time, Europe was laughing at us like, oh, America, you are so infantile. You have no taste. You have fast food restaurants and Sizzler. And then in the 70s, like everything started, well, maybe 60s, but in the 70s, everything started to change. And we started to like ask more of our flavors. So like TV dinners was not good enough. It's fast, convenient, but it wasn't taste very good. And slowly people started to ask for things that taste better and more variety. People weren't afraid to buy something that wasn't advertised, you know, regularly on sports events and TV. They're like, oh, you know, the non-commercial stuff that can be really great too. And so I think craft beer has sort of marked that progression, and to the point where, you know, you go to your supermarket and there's all this like wonderful like craft beer you've never heard of. You know, it's pretty awesome.
It really is awesome. And, you know, I this is Hillary's happy hour. It's the perfect show in which to talk about Brewmance, but I don't have a beer, but I do have a glass of bubbly liquid. And I want to propose a toast to you, Christo, and to the success of your film, Brewmance, on Amazon Prime.
Thank you very much, Hillary. Cheers.
Cheers.